Many animals and humans are raised in stimulating, nurturing, loving, and stable environments. Recently, brain researchers have begun to compare the effects of this kind of environment with the effects of stressful and neglectful environments on brain development and behavior. Let's start by taking a look at some of the animal research, because this tells us about the effects of different environments on the brain's cells, neural connections, and chemistry. In several studies, scientists at the University of Illinois compared two groups of rats. The first group were raised in a typical laboratory setting in which there was just one animal per cage with access only to food and water. Of course, that is not how most rats live in the real world. So, in an attempt to create a more natural environment, they also raised rats together, in cages that had balance beams, running wheels, and a variety of objects to interact with. When they looked at their brains, the rats that were raised in the more stimulating environment had many more brain cells and also more connections between brain cells than the rats raised alone. Furthermore, those rats raised in the complex environment performed much better on many different types of tasks, like learning a new maze, for example.
Other studies have seen similar effects in humans. Some children raised in orphanage settings were followed by researchers. The children received limited adult attention and adult stimulation while they were in the orphanage due to the low numbers of caretakers responsible for so many children. These children tended to do worse on problem-solving activities and other tasks that measure intelligence. However, when the children were adopted, their problem-solving abilities and intelligence levels increased. An important note is that the amount of increased intelligence was directly related to how much positive stimulation and interaction was provided to the adopted children in their new home settings.
For example, in the adopted homes, where children listened to music, were read books, went on walks, and received stable and nurturing attention from adults, there were large increases in intelligence. However, if the stimulation and nurturing was lower, there was considerably less improvement. Now, some of these same brain systems important in learning are also very important in social and emotional skills. Scientists have learned that healthy emotional experiences are at least as important as learning experiences in building healthy brains that provide a strong foundation for growth and development. For example, there is a brain structure which looks quite a bit like a seahorse, and it is called the Latin name for seahorse, hippocampus. This structure is responsible for making our memories, so it's clearly very important in learning. But it turns out that the hippocampus is also very important in regulating our emotional reactions to everyday events. And this structure is also very vulnerable to stress. For example, in rats that are reared by nurturing mothers, it becomes very plump with chemicals that promote the growth of new brain cells. However, if the mother is neglectful, it does not show hardly any of those chemicals. And just as learning promotes the growth of new brain cells, stress results in the loss of brain cells in this brain structure. Scientists have seen similar effects in humans. Exposure to repeated stress, for example, as a result of being afraid, hungry, or interacting with a parent who is abusive, neglectful, or depressed. This kind of stress causes the release of chemicals that are toxic to a child's brain, and that weaken its foundation and its architecture by interfering with brain cell growth and the formation of healthy brain connections. Compared to children in nurturing families, children raised in chronically stressful situations have persistently high levels of the chemical cortisol, which is harmful to brain cells. This has been seen using magnetic resonance imaging, a technique mentioned in the introduction. Research has shown that the hippocampus is decreased in size according to the length of time an individual is depressed or stressed. The overall size of this effect may depend in part on differences in types of genes, but both the studies of rats and humans show that chronic stress and depression are literally chemically toxic to the brain. Researchers have recently learned about different genes that are important in brain function, including the brain systems important in stress and depression. There are differences between people in the forms of the genes that are important in regulating emotions. Now, when we think of genes, we tend to think that their effects are fixed, determined, and unchangeable. But what scientists have discovered is that the effects of having different types of genes depend on the environment. When a person's relationships are nurturing and stable, people with all gene types are very unlikely to be antisocial or depressed. However, in stressful environments, people with certain genes are very likely to be aggressive and depressed. So, for emotional regulation, as for virtually every other aspect of human behavior, the consequences of having a particular type of gene are very different in nurturing as compared to stressful environments. Researchers have discovered that, regardless of a person's genetics, environment is quite often the determining factor in stress, depression, and aggression. Nurturing, responsive, stable interactions between children and caregivers, neighbors, friends, as well as parents and other family members, promote healthy brain development, and that gives children the opportunity to develop intellectually, socially, and emotionally. Researchers in the Brain Development Lab at the University of Oregon recently investigated whether training in good parenting skills could be effective in reducing family stress and in enhancing children's behavior and problem-solving skills. Over a period of 8 weeks, one group of parents received guidance in using language to facilitate positive interactions and consistent, predictable routines. Another control group did not receive parent training. Several remarkable changes occurred in the families that received the training. The stress levels in the families were reduced, and the children's social behavior improved significantly. In addition, the children in the families whose parents received training scored significantly higher on tests of language, problem solving, memory, and reasoning. In addition, the brainwaves of these children indicated that their brains were processing information more quickly and in a more mature fashion. These results point to the great changeability or plasticity of developing brain systems. As parents, caregivers, and educators, we can contribute to good brain development and functioning by providing naturally stimulating environments. We have many easy ways of providing interesting environments for our children. Simple one-on-one game playing, walks to the park, talking and listening are all wonderful ways of contributing to a child's healthy growth. Another easy change we can make is to decrease passive TV viewing. Scientists have shown that children learn far better from a live person than from TV and videos. And many studies have shown that following exposure to violence on TV and in video games, aggressive and violent behavior increase significantly. By contrast, as we have heard in this program, more interactive talking, walking, reading, and listening to music foster strong and healthy brain development. The research also points to the critical role of having a loving, nurturing relationship. Sometimes this can be difficult if the caregiver is tired, depressed, or stressed. However, the same types of activities that promote healthy growth in the child can also lead to a healthier brain in a happier adult. In summary, nurturing environments foster good learning skills and brain development. Chronic stress, neglect, and depression are toxic to brain systems important in learning and healthy emotions. The consequences of having a particular type of gene are very different in nurturing versus stressful environments. Training in parenting skills can significantly reduce family stress and improve children's social and cognitive skills.
Get mommy, get mommy, get mommy. Get mommy, get mommy.